Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Philosophy for Philistines channel with your host, Bill Reimer. I've become concerned that I've been too heavenly minded to be of earthly value. So in that vein, yesterday's talk was intensely practical. I discussed Team Kaizen, which is a team effort used to reduce waste, cost, and variation in business, to identify the root cause of problems, and assign them documented corrective action. Because, of course, our government has gone completely wonky. So I thought that it would be valuable to follow up with that theme today. Social engineering types, for that is all they are capable of engineering, love to use the word sustainable, which implies stasis. In a competitive world where stasis doesn't exist, the only way for processes to be sustained is through continuous improvement, which comes at the cost of showing due care for your workforce by empowering them with the tools and information to do their jobs correctly the first time. As importantly, continuous improvement must focus on the customer to ensure your products and services both meet and exceed their expectations in order to remain competitive and profitable. Examine these statements in light of the present idiotic use of the word sustainable to understand why what is currently being done by the incompetent fools in charge cannot be sustained, doesn't support those entrusted with the processes, and in no way, shape, or form places the needs of the end user at the fore. Sustainable? There is no stasis in an ever-changing and competitive world. Frank Stronach wrote in an article dated today in the National Post entitled, "A Skilled Trade Can Be the Path to Success and Wealth." Frank runs Magna Corporation, which produces parts for General Motors, among other manufacturers, and has been extremely successful. And an intensely practical man in terms of the way that he has run his businesses, keeping each division small, adaptable, and intensely customer focused. I know because I've been to their factories and dealt with them with process issues that they had. There are so few tradespeople in politics today. There are so few who have any real practical understanding of how things work. There's a reason for that. And there's a reason that our current cadre of politicians acts the way it does. It has to do with what they call, in my wife's country, Norway, janteloven. Janteloven is the cloying need not to think you're too smart, not to think too well of yourself, or not to think that you're good at anything. In fact, our politicians abuse the working class because they're jealous of them. They're incapable of fixing a toilet, of reworking a tap, of doing any work on their own vehicle. They utterly depend on skilled trades for everything they do to keep them in their entitled privilege and keep everything running smoothly, so they don't have to think why the water flows when they turn the tap on, or why the lights come on when they flick the switch. This is why they engage in policies that actually damage the very things that they're utterly dependent on. We have an entire political cadre, with many lacking any necessary real-world experience to manage the complex process of governing practically. Even the current leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, whom I know, and indeed is my member of Parliament in this riding. I'm fond of Pierre. I think he's a fine person, but he has no real-world experience outside of politics. So I'm going to share with you an election analysis from 2015. I couldn't find a more recent one. It was published on CTV News on October the 9th, 2015. It comes from an article written by Josh Dehas. So we're going to look at a breakdown of all the various professions that 8 years ago sat as members of Parliament. Agriculture. There are farmers and other agricultural workers in all three parties, but the Conservatives appear to have the most, 10, followed by the Liberals, 7, and the NDP with 5. From the arts, there are a handful of actors, musicians, filmmakers, and other artists running for the NDP, 7, and Liberals 5, but there don't seem to be any wearing the Conservative colors. Business. The Conservatives have about twice as many, 130 entrepreneurs, and other business people running as the NDP, 57, while the Liberals are in between with 91. This doesn't include professionals like lawyers and doctors who own their own practices. Education. The NDP has the most teachers, professors, and other educators, 47. Although the Liberals, headed by former high school teacher Justin Trudeau, also have a substantial number, 30. The Conservatives appear to have the least, 11. Government and politics. All three parties have large number of political staffers, provincial legislators, mayors, and councillors, First Nations administrators, and government employees. The Conservatives have 86, the Liberals have 73, and the NDP has 67. Among them are Tom Mulcair, who served as Quebec's Environment Minister from 2003 to 2006, and Stephen Harper, who worked for the fledgling Reform Party before winning his own seat in 1993. Healthcare. There are more doctors, nurses, dentists, pharmacists, and other healthcare providers running for the NDP, 19, and Liberals 15, than for the Conservatives, who have 8. Journalists. All three parties have signed up well-known journalists, but the NDP is the most with 13, including columnist Linda McQuaid, writer Noah Richler, and former Radio Canada broadcaster Anna Lagasse Dowson. The Conservatives have 7, including former Calgary Herald editor Joan Crockett. The Liberals have 4, including business writer and editor Chrystia Freeland. Law. The Liberals have about twice as many lawyers, 62, as the Conservatives with 29, and 3 times as many as the NDP with 21. The NDP figures include 1 retired judge. It should be noted that many candidates went to law school but fit better in other categories. Other or could not be determined. Some MPs could not easily be classified, including a small number of religious officials, social workers, and Liberal astronaut Mark Garneau. Others had occupations that wouldn't clearly be identified. This category would split between the Liberals with 41, the NDP with 58, and the Conservatives with 34. Policing and military. There are 9 current or recently full-time military members. 5 are Conservatives, 4 are Liberals, and none are running for the NDP. The Conservatives had attracted the most police officers with 8, although the Liberals and NDP each have a couple too. Students. The NDP have 12 students running, while the Conservatives have 6 and the Liberals 2. Most are from Quebec, where the NDP had trouble recruiting more experienced candidates last election, and where the Conservatives still have trouble finding candidates. Trades and manufacturing. There aren't many blue-collar workers aiming for seats, and most of them had chosen the NDP, 10, over the Conservatives with 2, or Liberals with 1. This group includes electricians, carpenters, transit workers, mechanics, factory workers, and more. Many are union representatives. Labor organizations. 21 people who work full-time for unions and labor organizations have opted to run, and 20 of them are NDP candidates. The other is Conservative Michael Chong, who worked for the National Hockey League's Players Association. And this research was conducted by Emerson Brito. But it shows you the ideological bent in each. And it also indicates clearly that ideology is driving what political party they're affiliated with. The one thing that's missing is anything that would possibly qualify them to manage something as complex as a government. Instead of governing on the basis of what is feasible and practical, economical, and profitable for the citizen, because of course governments don't profit, cannot profit, and invariably run at a loss. I had a friend tell me, deeply shocked me, because he is an expert in total quality. He has a doctorate in lean manufacturing in low volume environments, which is particularly suited to manufacturing things like locomotives and also military vehicles. He once said to me that it's the job of the government to pluck as many feathers off the bird as it can that will still allow it to fly. So here's my question. Who is he to determine what feathers can or cannot be removed from the bird? I find his attitude, especially given the fact that he's absolutely brilliant at identifying waste in a factory, that he's incapable of doing the same for government. And there's only one reason that could lie behind his unwillingness to play fair in both situations. He's ideologically driven. These people are ideologically possessed and utterly incapable of running an efficient system that answers to the people of this nation. This current interference from communist China in our electoral process, and the fact that the NDP has utterly abandoned the labor market while propping up a regime that has thrown the NDP's former constituency, namely workers, blue-collar workers, he'd thrown them utterly under the bus. We are headed for an economic crisis caused by the fact that our government is driven by nothing other than ideological possession. So those are some things to think and pray about, and think about what practical solutions we have in determining who ought to be sitting in Parliament. Because people that have no practical real-world experience should never win a seat. Have a great day, and God bless you.